haven't got a quote. Sorry, I just had a funny turn in Tesco. I couldn't remember my PIN number. I feel a bit weird. It's never happened to me before. I've just got it.
Mark.
Yeah, well, that's it. That is the worry.
Yes, I think you'll find, Mark, that all those drugs you took in the 90s, there is going to be a payback.
They're coming back to bite me right now.
Welcome to the AVForums podcast for Wednesday, the 22nd of April 2015, and joining me on this edition are Steve Withers.
So, what's the plan?
Mark Hodgkinson.
Great, you woke the baby.
Mark Botwright.
Rolling death balls.
And Ed Selley.
Get aboard and prime the engines, assuming it has engines.
Right, welcome back to the weekly podcast. We're almost out of April. We've almost run out of April. Ed, you've got some work to do, mate.
I know.
Yeah. If we get,
I don't know why I'm laughing, because so have I.
Yeah, I think we've all got lots of work to be doing this week until the end of the month. If I disappear, it's because there's a courier at the door. So
let's hope this one gets to keep his van.
Yeah, shall I tell the story?
Just to mention the courier.
Courier delivering something last week. Actually, he delivered the day before the two NAD components, so the processor and the power amp. But the person sending it forgot to send any cables to connect the two together, balance cables. So he was delivering an envelope with the cables in, and he's standing at my door, and he's literally 10 yards from his van. My door is onto the main street, and somebody decided to jump in his van and take off with the van. So I got my delivery, because it was in his hand. His van disappeared. But it was recovered, and they actually caught 4 guys responsible for it all.
Sounds like an inside job to me, Phil.
Slightly suspicious, doesn't it?
You have, in that single story, Phil, confirmed every stereotype I have about the North.
You've also given yourself an alibi.
Well, the thing is, this village, you would it just wouldn't happen. You know what I mean? Obviously, it looks like it's been followed by a car with some, and I've seen it as an opportune moment to jump in and away with the van. So unfortunately, he was left with no van. So there you go. Back to writing statements. I thought something I would never do ever again 8 years later. So anyway, if I disappear and then come back, it sounds like I'm having a heart attack. It's because I've got 2 massive subwoofers being delivered by a courier. Right, let's move on. Anybody see the Star Wars trailer? I know it wasn't a very big news, the Force Awakens trailer number 2, but come on, Hodge.
Did anybody not see the Star Wars trailer would probably be a more accurate question.
I'm more interested in what Hodge has got to say. I couldn't care less about the rest of you. So come on, Hodge.
Genuinely very excited. It just looked exactly how I wanted it. It's very evocative of the first movie, and yeah, just several things. Those TIE Fighter clips, the Millennium Falcon clips, it just looked fantastic. R2 looked exactly how I wanted him. The crowning glory with Han and Chewie at the end just made me feel young again and really enthused to actually go and see the movie. So I tried to hunt down an early booking at the Printworks in Manchester, but it's not available yet. But that's how excited I am.
There's just a little bit early.
I want to be there on opening night. I was really, really excited. I thought it was fantastic.
Did anyone see the unveiling of the droid on the ball?
Yeah.
And it's a physical effect.
Yeah, that was
amazing, isn't it?
Pretty amazing.
How is that done? It's really clever.
Well, it's little things like that it would have been the easiest thing in the world to do it as code, do it as an effect, do it as a CGI effect, and it's not. And people are putting the effort in, and yeah.
I think the biggest cheer at Celebration, other than for the teaser trailer, was for the fact that they turned around and said they'd built physical sets. Everything that they could do in camera was done in camera.
Yeah.
So that just...
I mean, that was the bit that really made me feel enthusiastic and confident that we're going to get a great film out of this, because the trailer was great. I mean, it teased just right. It delivered in terms of excitement and what you want to see, as Mark just said. But at the actual event, I mean, I know you watched it, Phil. You watched the whole live Q&A with J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy. And he said, I wanted, wherever possible, to build real sets, to use animatronics and actual prosthetic makeup effects, actors. Actual actors in Stormtrooper outfits, which looked really cool, I have to say, not CG clones. I mean, basically, that droid, as just pointed out, proved the point. Hard as it might be, we're going to do this as much in camera as possible, which meant, having edited the film, and done a first edit of the film, a lot of it's there on screen without even, before the ILM even had the effects. And it seemed as if everything that J.J. Abrams was saying was, this is a sequel to Return of the Jedi. This is a sequel to the original Star Wars trilogy. I'm making a realistic, dirty, used universe world, just like the original films. He's a talented writer. He's a talented director. If I think the prequels are shit, he must know the prequels are shit. They were never mentioned once, were they? They just didn't exist as far as I think the current filmmakers are concerned. This is the kind of Star Wars movie we wanted to get back in 99, but didn't, I hope.
Excited, but still trying to kind of rein in expectations. Fantastic looking trailer, but it seemed to have swept away all my cynicism and kind of jaded view of it. But I just keep trying to remind myself how I felt when I saw the Phantom Menace trailer. That's what I'm trying to do. Because I hear a lot of people say, actually, no, that trailer wasn't that good. But I think thoughts are kind of coloured by how bad the film was. So now the
trailer for Phantom Menace was unbelievably good. I think that's one of the greatest trailers ever made because it did its job by selling what was actually a rubbish film, but it made it look incredible in the trailer, and it didn't give too much away in terms of the plot. But if you watch those trailers again, those two trailers, you'll notice you hardly ever see the kid, and you hardly ever see Jar Jar Binks, but you see a lot of Darth Maul. Of course, it was the opposite in the actual film.
See, that's what worries me. What haven't we seen yet? The big kind of key points, the kind of whoop moments of seeing the Millennium Falcon and kind of Han and Chewie and that kind of thing, that's always going to play well with the crowd. And I think the news about practical effects was big, but there's still a long way to go. I really want to kind of know what else is lurking there. What's really the kind of meat of the story.
Going by the amount of alcohol it looked like Anthony Daniels and Carrie Fisher had when they were on stage there, it'd be interesting to see what their performances are like.
I mean, I'm all for the original cast being brought back, and there's a certain nostalgia attached to it, but I got the impression, is it me or Peter Mayhew could barely walk, could he? I'm guessing he's not actually playing Chewie most of the time, because he was on a cane and had someone supporting him. I mean, obviously he's got giantism, isn't he? And it's clearly taking its toll as he's getting older. And I'm sure that his involvement, I don't know how much of his involvement as actually playing Chewie is going to be, because he certainly wouldn't be able to run around based upon footage I've seen him in recently, not just that stage appearance, but other stuff I've seen him in.
I did love one of the things that cropped up on Twitter shortly after the trailer aired was, and I felt it sufficiently amusing, I retweeted it. There's a still of Harrison Ford and whoever, Peter Mayhew or not, in the Chewie costume with the caption "Blade Runner 2: Deckard buys a monkey." For whatever reason, cheered me up greatly. But yeah, no, I thought it looks very smart, and by and large, J.J. Abrams hasn't turned out much in the way of cack recently, so we have to stay guardedly optimistic. I think is all good. But yeah.
Did anybody else go through the trailer frame at a time just to see every little tiny thing in the background?
No, just you.
Forgot to mention Boba Fett. He looked good, didn't he?
He's a bit blinging, isn't he?
Boba Fett?
He was
bloke in a helmet.
There was Boba Fett.
Boba Fett's dead.
Is he?
Well,
he might have survived.
A giant vagina in the desert.
Well, hang on a minute. I'm going to get to the point in the video where I thought it was. Back with you.
You mean the guy?
That would be a great twist.
Who was it?
Boba Fett survives.
I don't think
I only watched it once, to be fair.
The shot of the crashed Star Destroyer was awesome.
Yeah.
And also, if you notice, there's a bit where there's a whole ranks of stormtroopers, and it's an ice planet they're on. And also, apparently, the desert world is not Tatooine. It's a place called Jakku. That was mentioned in the Q&A.
They're doing well with the familiar elements and just putting a little twist on it. I like the stormtrooper design.
Yeah, look really good.
I think they've done well not to kind of just try and just reuse particular designs and say, you enjoyed this, 30 years ago, you'll enjoy it now. But just to give everything a nice, slight little twist, a little bit of enough of a redesign that it seems like it's a bit fresh.
I don't like the redesigned Rebel helmets, actually. I think they look a bit rubbish. But other than that, it all looks pretty good to me so far. I'm even starting to warm to the lightsaber with the lightsaber hilt bit.
I don't know. To me, it looks like some kind of an elaborate barbecue fork.
Don't know. You could cause a lot of damage at a barbecue. One of those. It seems to be causing some consternation on the Wikipedia entry on lightsabers, which is incidentally longer than the Wikipedia entry for Winston Churchill. I'm not making that up. Yeah, if you go back into the edit history, there's some it appears to be a source of some
There's a couple of
discussion.
interesting points. One of which you brought up, Phil, which is he doesn't say my father had it, my father has it, is in the present tense, which is interesting. And
Well, no, everyone lives on through the Force.
yeah, well, and also there's a shot of somebody passing a lightsaber to somebody else, and it's the original lightsaber, or it looks like the original lightsaber that Mark Hamill got from Alec Guinness in the original Star Wars. So again, kind of interesting little tidbit.
Just sending in a screenshot. You'll have to tell me who it is then. Hang on a minute.
Is that what you've been doing for the last?
Yeah. 1 minute 21 seconds. It's not going to be him now, no, but I just want to know who it is. Star Wars.
If you're already booking for opening night, how soon are you going to start queuing up?
Oh, not till I have to. I'm not a big queuer.
Not until November.
Yes.
No, I'd like to get there in the first week at least. I'm not going to queue.
We'll be in a minute.
Oh, have you been gone?
Yeah, these subwoofers turned up. Give me 5 minutes.
Well, we'll just continue to just sort of witter on harmlessly, won't
So
we?
that's not Boba Fett, obviously. I don't know what that is. That's some sort of dark stormtrooper, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a stormtrooper, but obviously a black stormtrooper.
It looks, whoever it is.
It looks very cool, I have to say.
No, it isn't Boba Fett. You're right. On closer inspection, but it was only that fleetingly. It was just
Maybe it's their
side
version of Daft Punk from a galaxy far, far away, a long time ago.
It's a Chrome Trooper.
Chrome Trooper, according to Phil.
I'll take for his word.
Sorry, I'm having to type at the minute. Still catching my breath.
If you start feeling any sharp pains in your chest and down your left arm, call an ambulance.
Yeah, so if you taste copper, that's really bad. Unless you are actually physically eating a 2p coin, then it's all right.
40 kilos
So
each,
basically-
these things, by the way.
What?
40 kilos each, these things. It's a good job that van driver was the one that had his van nicked and gave me a hand.
Well, that's why I do earphones and headphones every now and again. You know, it's like, oh, you'd like to take this not particularly heavy box? Yeah, certainly. Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's good.
Right, you'll have to fill me in what's been said. So, from the top.
Well, we've just had a sort of argument. Not argument. We've bickered over the identity of people in the trailer. Steve's admitted he watched it frame by frame.
As did I.
Presumably that's because his internet just isn't up to actually watching it.
Yeah, I could watch that.
It was over the course of a week.
And yeah, the general consensus is it's good. We're excited.
Actually, you joke about that, Ed, but when that original Phantom Menace trailer came out, I downloaded it. It took about 8 hours to download that
Let's
one
guess,
little trailer.
were you in Hong Kong at the time?
No, I was living in Jersey then. It'd probably take me about 8 hours to do it now, actually. Very internet connection.
I think I've told this story before, but my best mate was the general manager at one of the Warner's places. When the trailer came in, we put it on a loop and the projector and just watched it over and over and over.
So that should be a lesson to us, shouldn't it? Let's not get too excited because
Yeah.
right says it could be bollocks.
Guarded enthusiasm is what I'd
It's probably
class
the
it
right
as.
approach. But the reason they're having this Q&A was because it's the Star Wars Celebration Convention, which is an annual event where all things like Star Wars are celebrated and discussed. And Disney have taken this opportunity to launch or announce quite a few things. So they started off with the Q&A panel for Force Awakens. Then they showed the new teaser trailer. And then the day after, they announced the full title of the new standalone film that Gareth Edwards is directing. That's going to be Star Wars Anthology Rogue One. So the idea is these anthology films will be separate, not standalone films, connected to the Star Wars universe, but not necessarily directly connected to the films that are being made now or the original films. This one is going to be set just before Episode 4, A New Hope, Star Wars. And it looks as if what it's about basically is the mission. Remember at the credit call at the beginning of Star Wars, it mentions Rebels have just won their first victory, and in the battle they got hold of the plans of the Death Star. It looks like this is going to be about that story, basically getting the plans for the Death Star, the original Death Star.
Many Bothans died to bring us this news.
That was in the third one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't see the film with the Bothans up. It'd be quite cool. Still, I want to see all the Bothans getting killed. Anyway, they had a brief teaser which showed a TIE fighter going down a canyon, and then the camera pulls up, and then on the horizon there's this gigantic Death Star, sort of hazy image on the horizon. Gareth Edwards said that it's going to be set in the fact that the Jedi are gone is going to be felt by people, and it's going to be about normal people without any superpowers, being heroes. The good guys will do bad things, and the bad guys will do good things. It's going to be morally grey. Felicity Jones has been cast so far from The Theory of Everything. I'm excited. It's coming out in December 2016, so a year after The Force Awakens. And you wait for years, and along come a whole bunch of Star Wars films at the same time. They're like buses, really. But as a fan of the universe, and as long as it's done well written, well cast, well made, it could be great fun. I mean, what Disney are obviously trying to do with Lucasfilm is something similar to what they're currently doing with Marvel, which is then they've got 1 or 2 or even 3 sometimes Marvel films out in a single year, but they're taking big money, so there's an appetite for it. But as long as it's done well, I'm all for it. So you've got Force Awakens in December, Star Wars Anthology Rogue One the following December, and then the following May, Episode 8. So in the next 2 years, we're going to get 3 Star Wars films, which is pretty cool. And then they also announced season 2 of Rebels, Star Wars Rebels, which is the animated series that they.
So where is this Rebels, Steve? Because I can't find it on any chat. Is it on any of the streaming services or?
No, it's on Disney XD. It hasn't even been released on Blu-ray yet, which is a bit of a pain because I really want to watch it. I really enjoyed the Star Wars Clone Wars series, Dave Filoni's series, and it's the same creative team doing this. I thought they were fun and exciting and enjoyable and really well made.
Yeah, I'd rather watch them than the prequels.
Yeah, quite. So this is set between episodes 3 and 4. So it's going to be in a similar time period to Rogue One, in fact, in some respects. And it's about the early days of the rebellion and a group of early rebels fighting the rise of the Galactic Empire. And there was a character from the Clone Wars who apparently appears at the end of season 1, so she'll be in season 2. And the big news being that in season 2 we'll also have Darth Vader, voiced by James Earl Jones. So again, I'm really keen to watch this, and I wish they'd put it out on Blu-ray so I could buy it. At the moment, you can buy the first couple of episodes put together as sort of a TV movie. You can buy that on DVD, I think, from the States. But yeah, it's not on any streaming services at the moment. Hopefully, it will appear on one soon, because I'd definitely like to check out that, because I've seen the trailers and it does look like fun. And the other news, Mark Botwright?
Well, the other news was Star Wars Battlefront trailer. 3rd in the series, come from Dyson EA. And they've got a release date, 17th of November, so tying in nicely with Star Wars at the cinema as well. They showed off some game engine footage, so it was all kind of created using the game engine, but obviously not from the perspective of how you'll be playing it. But behind closed doors, they also apparently showed off 5 minutes of proper gameplay footage on the PS4. It's going to be 40 players maximum, and yeah, it's all sounding very good. Sounds like they're tying it in nicely, though, particularly with some downloadable content as well that will be coming out that ties into the film.
Disney have commissioned a whole series of novels that will bridge the gap between episode 6 and episode 7, along with novels that also exist in other periods, going right back to from Phantom Menace all the way through these novels. I mean, the Disney marketing machine really is lurching into life now in terms of pushing Star Wars everything.
They're getting their money's worth from that time frame, aren't they, now?
They are. I mean, obviously, last Friday, they released the original trilogy and the prequels digital download, digital HD, with some new extras and that sort of stuff, which is a bit of a concern because I would like to see them do a new Blu-ray release, ideally, before the new film opens.
Did you see the pricing, though? The pricing of that. And this is one of the scary things that, when you get discs in a box on a shelf in a retailer, there's competition there and prices tend to fluctuate and go down. When you're looking at the digital download
side
of things,
60 quid, was it, or something like that?
Yeah.
69 for the lot, wasn't it?
£69 for you could get the Blu-ray box set for less than that.
Yeah.
And you have something physical that's yours and you can watch.
Which was the point I was making. If we're heading to a downloadable future, it's quite scary when you start to think about competition and pricing and models and so on.
Yeah, and particularly when you start hearing some of the studios talk, basically saying not going to release this and that. I mean, we mentioned it last week, I think, about The Simpsons, when they plan to support certain things on Blu-ray.
Well, it was supposed to be, there was a Blu-ray release, it's gone. DVD release, it's now gone. So you can only get it digitally now.
Yeah.
So if you've been buying them on DVD and Blu-ray, and you've got into, I think it's 16 or 17 now, series, and everything going forward now is only going to be digital download, I'd be pretty peeved.
Yeah. And, I was talking about with a friend of mine at the weekend, and we sort of came to the conclusion that the glory days are over now. And it's all
Is this the same friend?
Yes. It's always the same friend.
Was this a cat by any chance?
Steve, I've found something that is particularly exciting for you. Sorry, I mean, I'm disinterested in what you're saying, but but I am. And it appears to be the instructions on how you can make your own BB-8. So get stuck in. Yeah, you see, it's not all bad.
I bet you can't remember where you were.
Sorry. Yeah.
Digital
go back.
download future.
Oh, you'd have to prompt him. I was hoping we were going to move forward. Yeah, it is a scary precedent. Anyway, we're running fast out of time. We really need to kick things on. We've got loads to talk about this week, so let's move on quickly. Steve, why don't you rattle through the competitions and previous competition winners?
Okay, competitions that are currently running are you can win a box set of the Coen Brothers movies on Blu-ray. That runs till 26th of April. There's the Paddington Blu-ray, which runs until the 30th of April. There's the Dali Cubic 1 stereo system, which also runs till the 30th of April. New this week, we've got Night at the Museum 1, 2, and 3, so all 3 films on Blu-ray. And that competition runs until the 4th of May. And also new is the Kingston HyperX Cloud Gaming headphones, and that competition runs until the 18th of May.
I'm glad you said 4th of May and not May the 4th be with you. But anyway, on you go.
May 4th be with you, yeah. Previous competition winners. So congratulations go to Linda T, 4683, Wild Card, and Advanced 1973, who all won copies of Charlie Countryman on Blu-ray. And I'm going to have to be careful as I say this too. Rude Dog and Buck Fitch, who both won the Sound Magic P30S headphones. So congratulations to all you guys.
Excellent. It's like that surname Hunt, isn't it?
Michael.
And then
Michael
Hunt.
Yeah,
Yes.
Michael.
Right, let's move on quickly. Before we go to the big TV, which is going to be basically taking over the homepage for the rest of this week when this podcast goes out, let's quickly go to Netflix and Amazon offering 4K content. It's been around for a while now, but I think all 3 of us have now had TVs where we can stream 4K content.
Well, not me.
Well, it's possible. You just
I've
got-
got
It's
a TV
possible.
that can stream
Yeah,
4K
yeah.
content.
But anyway, me and Mark, I've been looking at the Amazon and Netflix 4K content, and you did a bit last year about Blu-ray versus 4K Netflix, Mark. So why don't you remind people of that first of all?
It basically ended up as a bit of a dead heat, really, in a lot of respects. There wasn't a big resolution difference you could see with the 4K stream content against a good Blu-ray. Specifically, it was House of Cards we used for the comparison. But it made streaming look like the future that it is, really, because if you can get that kind of quality with that kind of convenience at that kind of price, then that's hard to compete for with physical discs. But I came to pretty much the same conclusion again. This time with a slightly smaller TV, so it was a 48-inch JS 9000 Samsung. Eventually got 4K Netflix going. It wasn't ready in time for the review being published, unfortunately. But I watched 3 episodes of Daredevil and about half an episode of House of Cards Series 3. And it looks spectacular, particularly in the dark scenes. I think that's where it kind of shows the difference a bit more with the sort of the lower resolution streaming, where you get quite a lot of banding and posterization in those kind of scenes, and it just looks splendid. It looked, Blu-ray quality. Admittedly, again, it would be difficult to compare resolution-wise because I haven't got a disc, a Blu-ray to compare it to. But it looked utterly stunning. Yeah,
48 inches. I mean, in terms of screen size, is that big enough to really appreciate?
You're asking him. I had the 40-inch, Steve.
Oh yeah, that's true. You had the 40. So guys, seriously, I mean, at what point does 4K become pretty
After
meaningless on a screen size?
After 3.5 feet.
yeah, I'd say about 5 feet in terms of sheer resolution. But I mean, if that's the quality I'm going to get, streamed, I'm happy. I was happy at Blu-ray quality. So if I had a 40-inch TV, I would definitely use that service and be very happy with it.
Yeah, I've got to say, even at 40 inches, I tend to sit a bit closer to my screens anyway, so it looked tiny in comparison to the normal 50 that sits there. But in terms of resolution and so on, I watched Amazon series, is it Bosch? Bosch. I watched the first 2 episodes of that, and got to say, a really dark setting as well, so lots of shadow detail and so on. Looks superb, looked really, really good. And that was from about 4 feet, 5 feet back, and you could see the resolution and so on. The picture was nice and solid. Colours were good. Gradation was really good. So none of the stair stepping and banding gradation issues. Looked really, really good. And of course, I've got loads of 4K footage which I've shot and colour corrected myself. So I know how good it looks because I shot it and looking at it on the TV, really, really good. And it was playing it back.
Is that the first time you've been able to watch that footage at 4K?
At 4K resolution, it is, yeah. Yeah, but even in terms of colour and so on, I've got to say the Samsungs, I was a little bit like, pre-production units that you've had, Steve, thinking, it's easy to get them looking great out of the box, so what's a retail set's going to look like? But you've been out in the field and calibrated a retail
Yeah, I
set
have. I've
now.
calibrated a retail sample of the 65-inch JS9500, and that was actually even more accurate out of the box
So it's
than the review sample
so it's
I
not
had.
just pre-productions looking good. We
Doesn't
can
look like it, no.
Yeah,
No,
we
not
can
at all.
confirm that the retail sets look good. And I've got to say, this thing was accurate as you could get it out of the box. And if Samsung are managing to do that, I know Sony have been really good the last couple of years, Mark, with their stuff as well. So I think we're starting to win the battle a little bit in terms of getting things looking accurate out of the box, spot on.
I don't think the one I had was quite as accurate as the one Steve's done, but it was still, you wouldn't be complaining. I think the highest delta error was a tiny bit over 3, and it looked stunning out of the box.
Anyway, so yeah, really good. These services at 4K. The only thing that annoyed me was Netflix wanted $8.99.
You know what? They've not asked me for it.
Yeah, well, they wanted $8.99 from me over the $5.99.
No, it depends when you first activate it.
Oh, yeah,
your
the
4K
grandfather
subscription.
Yeah.
Ah, right, is that what it is?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you see, the Scotsman
You were
took
too
over.
late to the party, Phil.
Well, the Scotsman took over on $8.99. Yeah, you can sling your hook. But the Amazon stuff looks really, really good. So, I wouldn't be concerned at all moving into the future with 40 inches and above. I think as long as you're not sitting like 15 feet away from a 40-inch TV, and let's face it, if it was an HD TV, you're not going to see any difference anyway, are you? So, reasonable seating distances, reasonable screen sizes. I think the bigger the better is obviously the message we would give guys.
When it comes to home cinema, size does matter,
Yeah, totally.
basically.
Okay, let's move on and let's talk about the feature that has arrived in Steve's living room. It's not fair. Steve gets all these. It's only because he can take the bloody big boxes. That's why he gets all the good TVs. But anyway, what did he get this week, and what have you been looking at?
Well, I think it's probably fair to say that over the last few months, I've been a little bit harsh on LG occasionally for what I would suggest is over-promising
Just
and
a little
under-delivering when it comes to OLED. But at the end of last week, their 55-inch EG960V arrived for review. This is their, I think it's the first Ultra HD 4K OLED TV they've released in this country. But there was another one before that. There was a 65-inch EC970V, which was supposed to come out in the UK before Christmas, but didn't turn up. It is still coming out. I think it's going to be available through selected retailers around about now, in fact. But this is the 55-inch EG960. This is the new version. This one's got WebOS 2.0 on it, Full HD, 10-bit panel, wider color space. Not DCI completely. I measured it. It wasn't as wide as we're seeing on the new Samsung, the JS series, or what we'll see on some of the higher end Panasonics. But it was still a lot wider than Rec 709, allowing you to take some advantage of a wider color space. Obviously, it's an OLED, so black levels were absolutely measured at 0. Basically, on a black screen, it's 0. Blacks are incredible, but more importantly, it doesn't support HDR, but it's bright. You can go up to over 400 CDM squared, so you can get a really punchy image, but bright and also pitch blacks as well. The dynamic range is staggering. Everything just starts to look better when you watch it on this television. So that's the first thing. I mean, in terms of its...
Can I ask a question there? While we're talking about dynamic range. For me, dynamic range is always about 5% above black. LED LCD TVs can still not do that. Plasma could do it. Can this OLED? As in detail, just above black.
Yeah, it does. It's funny enough. I was watching a bit of the snooker on Sunday afternoon, and one of the guys was wearing a black shirt, a black waistcoat, and a black bow tie. All slightly different shades of black, but you could clearly distinguish every little detail in those blacks. It was quite remarkable, actually. It really delivers just above black, as well as delivering absolute black when it needs to. And then also, it can deliver really bright images when it wants to as well. So, yes, it doesn't support HDR. I actually did try the HDR content out on it that I've got, and it looked really weird. It was all washed out, but Gamma 2.2, Gamma 2.4, and 1886. Out of the box measurements, again, like Samsung, really accurate out of the box. Almost all the errors were below 3. It was impressively accurate out of the box. Again, this is a review sample, not a retail sample, but I was impressed with that. One of the good bits of news is that they've fixed the bugs in the CMS that we were seeing last year when we were reviewing their TVs. So both the 2 and 20-point white balance controls and the CMS all worked perfectly. And I got an accurate reference performance out of it in terms of both grayscale and color accuracy after calibration. But it was very accurate before that. Motion handling looks good. It's better than an LCD and not as good as a plasma, basically, at the moment in terms of motion resolution.
Steve, I'm just looking at your graphs here, and there seems to be yellow seems to be a bit of an
Yeah,
issue there.
the only color that struggled was yellow, and I couldn't get that to move out with the CMS. If I increased saturation, it didn't really make any difference. It was slightly undersaturated in yellow, which was the only flaw really in terms
That's
of
unusual as well, isn't it? Yellow's
yeah,
normally
it was weird. It was
quite
weird
often
because usually
it's
yellow's
spot on
spot on normally.
Yeah.
That was kind of strange, not noticeable. And also there was, if you went around the CIE tracking at lower saturations, it was a little undersaturated at some of those. So I mean, it wasn't a totally perfect color performance, but I mean, you're never going to notice that on watching normal content. Things looked accurate and natural when you're watching.
No, I mean, I'm just nitpicking. I'm just nitpicking.
No,
at your
absolutely
graph
not.
here.
I mean, if you're looking for nitpick, that would be one point I would have mentioned. And the other point is it's 52 milliseconds in terms of lag. So if you're a big gamer, you might think it's a little bit slower. And interestingly, one of the advances that Samsung have made this year over last year is they've got their input lag right down like into the 20s. Do you measure the 20s as well, Mark?
Yeah, 23-ish,
Yeah,
I think it
yeah.
is.
So it's no, that's really low. I mean, that's about as low as you're going to get, to be honest. So I mean, you could mention that as it being a tiny little comment. Otherwise, though, as I say, picture quality is absolutely stunning. The scaling is spot on. So I put on some 4K content, the 4K content you shot, Phil, which looked absolutely amazing. But watching Blu-rays or even upscaled 1080p broadcasts. 1080i broadcast rather. That looked really good too. I mean, really good upscaling. Lovely images all round. 3D. Now you've got 4K panels, so it's 1080p for each eye. Passive 3D. No flicker, no crosstalk. Really bright. But pitch blacks as well. If you're a fan of 3D, I watched the opening 10 minutes of The Hobbit, Battle of the Five Armies, when Smaug attacks Lake Town. I can honestly say it's the best 3D performance I've ever seen from any device. It's absolutely gobsmackingly good. Just detailed, natural looking, bright, but blacks are completely black. No flicker, no crosstalk whatsoever. It was just awesome. I mean, you could say that ironically, just as 3D is like going down the toilet, someone's produced a 3D display that delivers in every single aspect.
Well, I'm sure the two people that are still interested in 3D will hunt this TV out for a demo. Let's move things on. So,
Just what, how much is it?
3799.
Really?
Yes, not bad, is it? That's not bad.
No.
55-inch Ultra HD 4K OLED television. I think that's a really good price. The WebOS
That's
Smart
actually
Platform.
annoyingly sort of close to the point where you'd actually start thinking about doing something fiscally irresponsible, isn't
yeah,
it?
Yes, it is.
especially if they're offering 0% finance on it. I can see a lot of people jumping on that one.
And I wouldn't blame them. I don't want to give it back. Let's put it that way. WebOS 2.0 is basically the same as last year, but a little bit more responsive and a bit faster. Plus, it's got an extra. If you press there's a shortcut settings button on the remote control now. So you press that, and then some options come down the right hand side of the screen. Then you can go into.
I saw that in your video footage, and I thought, I don't like that. Oh no, I wouldn't like that. I'd much prefer just instant access. That's what I do like.
Well, before that, you couldn't get into the settings without going through the home menu. So at least you
Yeah,
can
I
get there a bit
suppose.
quicker now.
Yeah, I suppose if you're looking at it from that point of view, like our nerdy point of view, then
Yeah, I
Right.
mean, most people don't go into settings menu very often. Obviously, if you're calibrating on something like that, you're going into it a lot. So it depends on your point of view. I think most people will set something up once and that'll be it.
I've got
They
a
won't
funny,
use a lot of that stuff.
I've got a funny feeling you've given this one a badge.
I have indeed. Yes, I have indeed. It's getting a reference status badge.
Okay,
It
so
is
it's now
currently
our
the
reference
best
point,
TV
is
I've
it?
seen.
Right. So everything else that comes through the door this year is up against that, is it? Is that what
Yeah,
we're saying?
absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely
cool.
up against that.
Right, let's move on. Going to play a quick ident, and then we're into games news. We are seriously too on topic, and but we can catch up time here now because it's time for games news. And as it's just been our games podcast, Brent's doing any news, but go ahead and plug the podcast, Mark.
Okie dokes. Apologies, slight lateness due to dreaded lurgy going through, decimating the games team. But we covered Nintendo mobile news, the death of OnLive, and their kind of futuristic streaming service, which sadly is closed. The Call of Duty teaser, Deus Ex Mankind Divided. They've had the announcement trailer, so we discussed our hopes for the series going forward. Low on the review front, so I gave a little plug for Tower of Guns review, which is still online, up on the site now. And we also covered Steve's ongoing obsession with all things Apple and his want to buy an Apple Watch.
Has he got his cardboard cutout version of it yet?
I bet he probably has. Maybe he's made one out of, like, I don't know, baking clay or something, and he's wearing it round,
It
coloured
just
in with
says
crowns.
I will never be more than 24 hours from a main socket ever again. It's just, I don't know.
It says my wrist will burn, is what it says to me.
Yes, but Ed, someone who like spends a shed load of money on vinyl and turntables hasn't really got.
I'm sorry, the residuals of the stuff I buy will knock an Apple Watch into the middle of next week. Also, it doesn't, it doesn't work without mains, but it's not completely dependent on being constantly charged either. So I'm not. No, I just at the moment smartwatches are just a bit of an oddity to me. I think it's my getting old moment. I just can't see a point where my life will be improved by a watch telling me that I'm fat and I haven't moved for an hour. Tell me something I don't know.
That's when it calls the emergency services because it thinks you're dead, Ed. That's the problem.
It's when the kinetic watch on your wrist just stops working.
Do you know what? A friend of mine actually managed that during a period when he was crash writing his dissertation at university. He essentially sat with a Seiko Kinetic watch, which was just on the desk, and he was writing with his other hand, and it just ran out of charge, which I thought was quite an achievement.
Anyway, games news?
Yeah, that's games news.
Okay, so we're moving on to movie news. No movie review in the podcast because we've done loads of movie reviews on the site. So go and read them. Steve, what can they read?
Yeah, there were 4 films out last weekend. So you had The Salvation, which is a sort of revisionist western starring Mads Mikkelsen that Kaz reviewed and enjoyed very much. He sort of seems to be of the opinion this is going to be the year of the western, with quite a few westerns coming down the pipeline. I mean, most prominently, I guess, Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight.
And don't
70mm.
Yeah, don't forget Star Wars: The Ultimate Western.
Yeah, true. Yeah, you could say that. There's also The Last 5 Years, which I've got to say looked quite interesting. It's about a relationship over a 5-year period, I guess, but seen from both perspectives of the woman and perspective of the man. And it starts from the beginning for the man and from the end for the woman, and goes backwards together so they meet in the middle, which I thought that sounds really interesting. It is, however, a musical, which is not my cup of tea usually. It's all singing. So I guess it depends on whether you like musicals or not. You reviewed that. That was, I think Sharina reviewed that, and she said that the songs probably lacked being memorable enough to make it. It was an interesting film and a good idea. Maybe the songs could be more memorable, which I guess is, if it's a musical, that is an important factor. Though I always found that the songs were a bit boring, and it's like Les Miserables, to be honest. Not done toe tappers for my.
Yeah, I mean,
mind.
you've got to know the songs, haven't you? I think that's
Well,
why.
that's it. I think that's one of the reasons why there's been a whole spate of musicals based upon various people's songbooks, because they're already built-in audiences for some.
Exactly.
Queen's back catalogue, or Mamma Mia, with ABBA, or the Kinks.
I think the most original one there was Moulin Rouge, where it mixed lyrics from really famous 80s songs together to tell the story. I thought it was really, really well done, that.
I don't know, South Park Bigger, Longer and Uncut had some cracking and very memorable tunes.
It did, actually. I can still remember those. And that was, oh God, that was a good 12 years ago, Ed, is it not?
I
yes,
remember,
turn the century.
I remember the late Robin Williams sang Blame Canada at the Oscars.
Yeah.
That's The Last 5 Years. So it is a musical. I should warn you up front in case if that's not your cup of tea, don't go. But it does sound interesting, and apparently Anna Kendrick is superb in the lead role. Child 44, which you read the book, right, Ed?
Yes. Can I just point out, my wife would like to vehemently disagree with the review posted on the website. She felt it was, and I quote, a crock of bollocks. So make of that what you will.
Perhaps that's because as your wife read the book as well.
Is that the collective term for bollocks?
I don't know. I just report. I just news as I get it. She went to see it. She went to see it on Sunday night and came back very grumpy indeed and said it was a crock of bollocks. So.
How come your wife gets to go to the cinema on a regular basis, but you never do?
She has an unlimited card, and it's how she unwinds. So on a Sunday evening, Kirsty will.
Yours is listening to music, presumably, then.
Yeah, I just get muggins to bed. Well, that, and I watch Hawaii 5-0. That is my guilty pleasure.
I thought it was Person of Interest was your code.
No, I don't watch that as well. But no, Hawaii. I mean, Person of Interest is bloody Orson Welles classic. I mean, Hawaii 5-0 is dreadful. I have no difficulty with accepting the fact that it's dreadful. But I've seen every single episode, and I'm sure as hell not going to stop now. I mean, also,
you can't let go of that balloon, can you?
No, it's
still going on.
What?
No, it's a new series with different cast.
There's a new series.
Jack Lord's been dead for 20 years.
I didn't know there'd been a new series. That passed me by.
Ed, does it have the same theme tune though?
You know it does.
Oh, that's the best theme tune ever for a TV series. Isn't it?
Do you know what? It's an hour where I don't have to think. It just
Have you ever-
happens. It's in Hawaii, so most people are, people who have an
Easy on the
agreeable
eye.
physique are agreeably dressed.
Have you ever been to Hawaii? Have you ever been to Hawaii?
I've never been to Hawaii, no.
I can guarantee it's not like that.
And I would also say that it must be said that whilst they do portray it as quite idyllic, they do kill an awful lot of people. Very few people are actually brought to justice by the 5-0 team. They're just sort of.
I mean, they don't get to say Bookham Dano Murder One.
I think they managed to get a Bookham Dano in every 4 or 5 episodes at best.
Contractually.
They normally just kill. They don't normally just kill the person. It's all a bit brutal.
And this is at the cinema, is it?
Child 44 got a good review from Cassandra, although I will have to say, notwithstanding the comments made by Ed's wife, most other reviews have not been quite so nice. But she thought it was quite good. I think a lot of people have said the same thing, which is that Tom Hardy's very good in it, but the film itself perhaps isn't as good as it could be. Certainly not as good as the book, apparently, Ed.
No,
it's a good book. And the other film that was released at the weekend was Little Chaos, which was directed by Alan Rickman and starring Kate Winslet, where she basically plays a landscape gardener who is...
I'm enthralled.
Yeah, no, seriously, who doesn't want to see that? I mean, a landscape gardener. She's working on the gardens of Versailles and falls in love with the master gardener.
Is this Ground Force? Do we see Charlie's Dimmicks?
Does she manage to stay dressed?
Ground
all the way
Force
through?
frocks.
Russell Crowe as Alan Titchmarsh.
Has Kate Winslet finally managed to do a film where she actually stays clothed all the way through?
Stays dressed if it actually requires it in the script. That's the Dennis Pennis question to Demi Moore, isn't it? If it absolutely required in the script, would you keep your clothes on?
Okay, that's what's at the cinema this week. I've just been having a look through the figures, and not one of these has made anything over 300,000. Not a good sign for the cinema. But then, if we look at this week, Steve, I think it's a good reason that people have been getting their films out quickly before this one.
None of those films were expected to do well at the box office. I think they're all small films, nice, not necessarily bad films, but small films that were always going to have limited appeal. Yeah, everyone has been avoiding this Friday, or this Thursday, in fact, like the plague, because that's when Avengers: Age of Ultron opens. Now, Avengers made $1.5 billion at the worldwide box office when it opened, so it's going to be one of the top 2 or 3 films this year. I think Ed's of the opinion it's going to be number 1. I still think Star Wars might swing it at the end of the year, particularly if the trailers keep looking as good as they are so far. Although, surprisingly, there is a bit of an outrunner here in terms of the...
Yeah, well, I was going to come to this.
Fast and Furious 7 has made over $1.1 billion at the worldwide box office. It's the fastest to $1 billion of any film in history.
Yeah.
It's made over $250 million in China alone. It's looking like it's on course to pull in about $1.4 billion worldwide, which would make it the 4th most successful film in history after Avatar, Titanic, and the Avengers.
It is the most successful at the UK, by the way. It got that record. Yeah, it got that record.
I mean, obviously that fills my heart with joy, but I can't believe it.
Unbelievable. As I say, it's not bad for something descended from Point Break with cars made on a budget of 87
well,
isn't it?
It's insane that the 7th film in a series makes over $1 billion. I mean, it's okay if it's like the Potter movies, you expect that. But for and even the Avengers, was the culmination of a 6 string of films gradually increasing in popularity and a very careful strategy on the part of Marvel and Disney. Somehow, a bunch of chances in a car and a bunch of...
I'm looking forward to Fast and the Furious 12 sweeping the board at the Oscars and actually destabilising the world's economy as everyone spends all of their money watching it all of the time.
I guess one of the serious questions that we have to ask here, Steve, is it a fallout of Walker losing his life and people curious?
I think there's a number of factors at play here. There's definitely Paul Walker's death gives it a certain emotional attachment to the film, and people are going to see it either because they like the series, they like Paul Walker, or they were curious to see how they finished it without him being alive. It's not like other Paul Walker films are pulling in $1 billion at the box office, so it's not as though he's got a huge fan base. I just think it's the gradual increase. These films have bucked the trend and any sense of logic here in the way that they've progressively got better, or at least more entertaining and progressively more successful. And after the last one, there was definitely an amount of momentum building up here. Will be interesting to see what happens with the 8th film, and whether that can keep that momentum going. Because I mean, there's not many. It really hasn't got nowhere to go now, has it? After 1.4 billion at the box office, unless it's going to start pulling in Titanic-style numbers, it can only really go down. But who knows? I mean, anyway, that's currently, both the Avengers and Star Wars going to have to go some to top Fast and Furious 7 this year.
That being said, I found an article on Cracked, which I sent to Steve, and as all Cracked articles, it's a list. 5 ways the Fast and the Furious is better than you realise. And do you know what? It is. It is absolutely hot.
Yeah.
It identifies many just certain aspects of it which are just weirdly compelling. And yeah, if they just keep doing that, who knows? It could do.
I think they nailed it in that article when they said what makes the Fast and Furious films, and particularly the more recent ones, so appealing is that although they are utterly ludicrous, the characters, it's never tongue-in-cheek. They take it completely seriously within the context of the film, don't they? Even though what's happening, I mean, they're going out the back of a plane in cars with their parachutes on the back, or they're driving a tank down a freeway off the end of a bridge, or they're chasing the world's largest plane down the world's longest runway. Yes, it's ludicrous, but they're always absolutely straight-faced about it in the film, and I think that's part of the appeal. No point has anyone put their tongue in their cheek, and that's I think the secret to these films.
I guess you could say exactly the same thing about Bond films, though, can't you? I mean,
that used to be the case about Bond films, but
they're totally all over the shop.
Right. Let's move on very swiftly because we're fast running out of time. But it's a simple question. We've asked it a few times, but seeing as we're getting big trailers for big movies this year, all starting to hit round about the same time, we discussed Star Wars at the start of the podcast. There's other films coming. Jurassic World is coming up soon. Now, when the teaser came out, I was interested. When the first sort of added scenes and CG finished and stuff, it was about 4 weeks ago that trailer came out, and I thought, because he's got trained raptors, and I'm thinking, oh god, where are we going with this one? New trailer came out this week, and I've swung it around again in the case of I want to see it. Anybody else see the trailer? What did you think?
I haven't seen the trailer yet, but do you know what?
It says in the notes.
I know
Watch
what it says in the notes.
It would take you 2 minutes.
Not to watch all of those, would it? I got to the Ant-Man one. Go me. I'm interested, but as someone that rarely attends the cinema, I'm the wrong person to ask. I'll get around to watching it sometime in the next 3 to 4 years.
All right, Mark Botwright, what did you think?
I thought it looked quite good. I wasn't in any way interested in this. However, I thought it showed off a little bit more of a plot. I thought use of kind of big explosions. I was all ready to say, yes, I want to see it. But then it seemed to just show off too many of the kind of the big money shots, so to speak, those moments that kind of, get a bit of crowd reaction in their entirety. Things like the helicopter crash and stuff. I just thought there are lots of bits where I thought if you would have shown me half a second to 1 second in a quick cut of that, I would have wanted to see it in its entirety. But some of those shots that they use in this latest trailer are about 3 or 4 seconds, and it shows things in their entirety, and you just think, I'm going to remember that. I'll know where that's coming now in the film. The only thing they've really kept back, which I think they're quite smart, is the monster. It's got that kind of appeal, like the Relic, of just saying there's a monster and hopefully it will look quite interesting. Other than that, I just think they've shown so much away.
Yeah, the original Spielberg trailer for Jurassic Park, you never got to know about the T-Rex, really, did you? You saw the cup and the ripple in the water, and that was about it. Until you actually sat and watched the film, because that was the big money bit. Mark, you said this spoiled it for you, didn't it?
Yeah, totally. I think I know exactly what happens in the movie now. I mean, without trying to spoil it by talking about the trailer, but you can see the monster and how they go about taming the monster seems pretty clear. And there were several scenes where bodies are snatched, where obviously that would be building tension in the movie if you watched it, but you know what happens. Yeah, far too much given away. I can pretty much guess exactly what happens in this movie.
Okay, let's move on to Terminator Genesis. A new trailer was out last week. Ed, did you see this?
Yeah, I did see that, and I mean, I don't know how critical it is with the Terminator movies, because with the honourable exception of the end of Terminator 3, which was a bit of a surprise, everything else, they don't, giving away the plot is sort of secondary, because we kind of know what's going to happen anyway. But nonetheless, I do think they've shown everything of note in the film in the trailer. So yeah, I think.
Ed, was it you who put forward or posited the theory that they're deliberately making the worst film of all time, so the rights will revert back to camera?
I've stolen it off the internet
because I'm beginning to think that might be true.
Yeah, I mean, you just have to watch
Seen
that.
this trailer.
You just have to watch that trailer, and you come away with more questions than answers, don't you? It's like, what?
Why is John Connor trying to kill his own mum? Wouldn't that mean he wouldn't exist?
and
It doesn't make any sense.
The moment where Schwarzenegger smiles and does the little comic turn, I honestly thought the saddest thing this week was seeing Sylvester Stallone in a Warburton's advert.
Arnie's been in a Compare the Meerkat advert.
Yeah, he has. Yeah. The thing is with T2, the T2, he did that, but it was the deleted scenes, wasn't it, where he did the facial expressions and stuff, and it was eventually cut out of T2. But no, they've done it now in that one. It's just like you say, Steve. You're watching it and you're thinking this makes no sense whatsoever. Especially the fact that they showed John Connor as a Terminator. That just spoils the whole thing. Or
also, someone pointed out, how would Sarah Connor even know what her future son looks like?
Exactly.
Doesn't make a lick of sense at all.
Is it a reboot or a sequel or what is
it? Remake, sequel, all of the above.
I couldn't understand what the hell was going on.
It's a big pile of poo.
Festering boil on the schedule of films due out.
I mean, I'm going to go. I mean, in a sense, it's worked because I'm definitely going to go and see it. I mean,
what is the release date?
Train wreck of a film, so it's got to be worth checking it out.
What's the release date on that one? I know Jurassic World's the 12th of June.
Yeah, that's in June. It was the 3rd of July.
3rd of July for that one. Right, okay. Let's move on swiftly. Batman versus Superman. I've got to admit, I've no interest in this so far as I didn't even bother watching the trailer. Couldn't care less. It's another superhero thing.
No, I have seen the trailer for this, and it just looks so appallingly po-faced. It's two men in fancy dress. You cannot take it that seriously.
How gruff was his voice as well? It's just ridiculous.
Well, at least he wasn't doing the Christian Bale.
Yeah, I guess if you want a summary of this, what I would suggest is people go and watch the Superman Honest trailer by Screen Junkies. They absolutely nail it, and there's no need to see any more of this Superman at all.
They do nail it. At least the one good thing about the trailer was that apparently Superman's getting grief for the level of damage he caused to Metropolis in Man of Steel. I mean, that's fair enough. He at least have got the insurance bill for that because, I mean, he levels half the city. And at least that's been it. But yeah, it's po-faced. It's like serious. And it's basically the whole, kind of, I guess, the ethos of the Nolan Batman movies has kind of been brought over to Superman. Superman's meant to be fun. He's a guy in blue tights and red underpants.
You don't take it too seriously because there's no jeopardy there.
It's a flying alien.
There's no jeopardy there because he'll never get killed. So have fun with it.
Compare it to the Kryptonite.
Yeah, exactly. I got to say, I thought out of all the trailers, I thought this was the best. I really did. I quite like a bit of po-faced superhero action.
See that from your profile pic.
Yeah. Zack Snyder does, he knows how to create or at least present something.
Action.
Well, no, he knows how to present something in a kind of visually stylish manner. I don't know whether the film will be any good, but I've got to say, I think there are enough fun superhero films now for us to actually allow these ones to slide by. If someone wants to take a slightly more serious, darker look at it, I'm looking forward to this one.
I just feel that what I don't like about it is the way that DC are trying, and stroke Warner Brothers, are trying to basically pull Avengers, but they're not putting in the effort, whereas Marvel, I think, was it 5 films leading up to the Avengers. They really put in 2.5 years of work, and built up these characters and established them in their own films first before having the superhero team up. They've had one Man of Steel movie. Now they're shoehorning in Batman and also Aquaman and Wonder Woman into this so they can have a Justice League film. It just feels rushed and unnecessary. And
right, so they've got to do
greedy.
They've got to do 6 films, so the 7th one nails it. Knocks it out.
Well, no, but if you want to establish characters, you want a Wonder Woman film first and an Aquaman film, and then you bring them in together. Otherwise, it just feels
now
like
if they do to be fair though, Steve, if they did a joyless Aquaman movie, I mean that would be
Jason Momoa's playing Aquaman. That's all right. I like him. So
Yes, I know, but if it's all just done so, why it's all serious? I just, shit.
Well, they're already doing that, aren't they? We've had enough of that with Man of Steel. I just feel DC are desperately trying to replicate the success. It's really funny. I mean, 20 years ago, when Batman, Batman had been huge, and the Burton Batmans had been out and made lots of money. And Marvel, they couldn't get arrested back then. Their stuff was rubbish. I mean, they were like Roger Corman, dirt cheap, Fantastic Four knockoffs that never even got released. And now it's Marvel are leading the way, and DC are desperately trying to catch up.
I'm going to have to go, guys, because I've got to go and get the kids a bit earlier.
Because you've had enough.
No, not because not enough. Literally, I've just had a call. I'm picking two.
Cup of tea, aren't you?
He's remembered his PIN numbers and he's left his kids somewhere.
I've remembered my PIN numbers.
I left them at the supermarket.
Right,
Top of the car.
Right, see ya.
Right.
You see what you've done, Steve?
I'll find him away.
Right, anyway, so do modern trailers give too much away? I think the simple, easy one-word answer is yes. I think the art of trailer making is a dead art. I think people have forgotten what the trailer's supposed to be, what a teaser is supposed to be. The only exception to this recently, I would say, is the Star Wars stuff. Everything else that we've listed here, to a certain degree, spoils or gives too much away, I think, from what trailers used to be.
But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. My brother-in-law, who periodically listens to these podcasts, bless him, he has made a point of not watching trailers for as long as I've known him anyway. And I'm increasingly coming around to the idea that he might have a point. So yeah, he's one of the very few people I know that can actually go into a film with none of the preconceptions that we're all now sort of being foisted upon by being given a sort of 120 second condensed version of the entire film, which seems to be but I mean, I don't know how, if this has happened historically in films before, whether it's something that can be broken as a cycle. I don't know.
What used to happen, and correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, but there used to be a case for certainly big movies and so on. They used to actually shoot stuff just for the trailer.
Yeah, they did.
That was never in the movie.
Quite often, like certainly in the 50s and the 60s, and probably before that, the trailers often were, the director would address camera directly, and you quite often would see Hitchcock, for example, would do trailers like that, where he would talk to them. I mean, I remember seeing the trailer for Psycho, and he basically takes you the camera, takes you around the house, and then goes, something happens in here. Oh, it's terrible. I can't talk about that. And so it was really teasing you brilliantly. And that was the kind of thing they used to do. And then if anyone's ever seen the original trailer for Star Wars, it's, you kind of be looking at it thinking, what the hell is this? So there's been a gradual, I guess, what happens these days is that they actually hire a specialist company, don't they, who does trailers for these films mostly. There are some directors who are very hands-on and involved in their trailers more directly than others, but the art of trailer making has gone from teasing you and making you want to go and see a film to find out what happens in it, to just basically saying, this is the film, are you up for it or not? But showing you so much of it that you kind of think that they did a film of Romeo and Juliet, they show the pair of them committing suicide at the end of it, and that would be.
Do you think that's because we've now got so many different kind of rungs along the way towards the eventual trailer? Like now you've got the announcement teaser and various different types of teaser trailer and things like that, to the point where once you finally actually get a trailer, it's now become like a little 2-minute kind of précis of the entire film, because it's assumed that, well, if you just wanted your appetite whetted, you'd just stick with, the kind of little teaser trailer. Like, I mean, that Ant-Man trailer is absolutely terrible. It's like the entire film condensed to the point where you don't feel in any way compelled to go and see it, because it almost seems to follow, it's chronologically just the film with bits cut out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know if it's because they just think the modern audiences, I don't know, it's almost as if they feel they have to show you the film or you're not going to go and see it. The people don't have the patience anymore to be teased enough to just think, I must go and see that film to find out what it's about. They want to know what it's about, or they're not going to go and see it. And maybe that's something to do with international audiences as well. Maybe it's more to do with trying to sell to an international audience who maybe don't speak English as a first language, if you're making an English language movie. Because no question that international box office has become far more important than the US. I mean, in the old days, it was the US where an English language film made its money, and then it did. Maybe the UK would be okay in some of the other territories, but it was the States that was key. As Fast and Furious 7 has just proved,
China.
That's irrelevant now.
China rules, and you don't have to be able to act.
Transformers, Transformers: Age of Extinction, and now Fast and Furious 7. Both those films will make more money in China than they did in the States.
I finally got around to seeing that the other day.
Or Age of Extinction.
Yeah. I forced
you sucker for punishment. Why did you do that?
I forced myself to watch it. I thought, well, I may as well watch this one just so I know what the guys are talking about in the podcast. And the soundtrack is absolutely blissfully fantastic with the amount of bass sine waves that they use and stuff is unbelievable. And what surprised me was how much destruction they were allowed to show on screen of Hong Kong.
I'll tell you what used to annoy me. I don't think it happens so much these days. It does occasionally, actually, but not so much. You remember when they used to have scenes in the trailers that weren't in the film? Like that scene got cut. Well, obviously, they'd edited the film.
Yeah,
they would do the trailer so far in advance that...
There's the famous one of C-3PO ripping off the warning on the door because there's those snow creatures.
Yeah.
And it was a whole story arc that was cut out of the film in the end, but it's still in the trailer.
That's a good example. You used to get that. There'd be lines of dialogue, and you think, I like that line of dialogue. And you get to see the film, and it's not in the film, and you're thinking, it doesn't really happen so much now. Now you just get the whole film, as Mark's pointed out.
Okay, so I think basically what we're saying here is that the art of the trailer has been lost. What do you think? What's your views? Which trailers have you seen and wished that you'd never seen because it spoiled the movie for you? Do you avoid trailers? Give us your thoughts in the podcast forum underneath this podcast, and if we get some good ones in there, which I'm sure we will, we'll come back to this in a future podcast and discuss those. So all I need to do now is thank Steve Withers.
No problem. The hard part's over.
Mr. Hodgkinson's already left us, so Mr. Botwright.
This smells like Count Dooku to me.
And Ed Selley.
I think it's Little Stinky you smell.
Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter and Facebook, bookmark AVForums.com for latest reviews, news and video. Plus, why not leave us a ratings on iTunes if you enjoyed the show. iTunes, if you enjoyed the show. Why did I say iTunes? I don't know. Anyway, iTunes, leave us a rating, 5 stars if you could. Keep an eye. Also, keep an eye on the podcast page because there may be a special podcast coming in the next few days. That's all we can say at the moment. But we'll sign off with a massive X, and we don't mean 10. I'm Phil Hinton, thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you on the weekly podcast next Wednesday.